from 30,000 feet, Tyler, as we get ready for the season from an Atlanta United perspective, what does the offseason look like for you heading into this 2024 season with folks who are coming in and additions and folks who finally get a full preseason from 30,000 feet? What's your view as we head in here?
I think the overarching sort of view is simply that the front office has filled in the holes that Atlanta had last season and seasons prior. It's been the defense. Atlanta, we know it's been beat to death. Atlanta has one of the best attacks in the league, but they leaked goals last year wildly.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going into the Columbus match this weekend, right? And you're looking at something like 23 goals between the two teams when they played each other in all competitions last season. So goals aren't the problem. It was giving up the goals. So you have Bartosz Slish come in. And that was my biggest kicker last year, was bringing in a guy that can be that first line of defense in front of the center backs, because you know the center backs got a lot of hate last year, but they can't be the only ones defending, right? Goalkeepers, Brad Guzan getting his share of hate last year, but it starts way ahead of them, and many times they were left out to dry. So you bring in a guy, a Polish international, who he has the experience. He's young, but he has experience. He's a solid player. And then, of course, you bring in Dax McCarty, so another proven MLS player. You just talking about Nashville. And then, of course, the goalkeeper core, who's going to start this weekend, I have no idea. I personally this is my opinion, my 2 cents. I think it's going to be Cohen, but I would not at all be surprised if Brad hangs on to that starting spot. So from 30,000 feet, it was the defense. It was filling in the holes. It was bringing in what we think on paper, the right guys. My hot take in the offseason was this is probably the best on paper starting 11 and depth that Atlanta United has ever had.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. Maddie, batting leadoff for your lead question for Tyler Pilgrim. What's on your mind?
Yeah, I mean, well, first of all, Tyler, I don't think that's a hot take, so I completely agree with you. I
appreciate that.
I think it is one of the strongest 11 that we've had, I think, since the inaugural season and since the MLS Cup. I think since then it's been like that decline, and like we're finally seeing like just the talent that is going to be on the field is going to be so much fun to watch. But with that being said, obviously it's the start of the MLS season. I mean, expectations going into Columbus, you know, it's the team that knocked us out of the playoffs last year. What are your expectations for that match, and what do you want to see from the side?
So in MLS, it's hard to go into an away match and say you should win that, right? We always hear it. We hear the ideas of
2 out of 7, I think it was last year. Like,
yeah, 22%. Right. But they were so close on so many away matches, right? They just dropped points at the last, second. But I think expectations for Columbus, it's easy to give the, they need to go up and win answer, because you do, but that's not MLS. Atlanta United is well aware that they have to go and fix their away record to be serious contenders for, if they're shooting for Supporter Shield. I mean, they want trophies, right? And they're going to take whatever trophy they can get. So I want to see fight, and I want to see points, whether that's a win or a draw. You don't play for the draw, but you can't start the season off with a loss unless you're 2018 and you get destroyed in Houston 5-0. But
we blocked that out, Tyler.
Yeah. We'll push that one aside. But yeah, I want to see that the team is a cohesive unit. I want to see the identity, and I want to see them, like Columbus, play their style of game regardless of the pressure that Columbus is going to put on them. Because I think if they can do it against Columbus, they can do it against any team in the league.
When and obviously we have an ongoing conversation with our friends in the Twitch pitch, and I will pose this question to you from one of our A-listers, Ropes, resident Evertonian and Everton fan. How do you feel about the 3-1 loss to Sporting in the preseason? My answer, Ropes, before Tyler, let me get your answer, but my answer, Ropes, is this: 2 of the goals were from the penalty spot. We don't know context, because unlike Toronto and Columbus, when they had a match, basically it was very Orwellian of them to sit there and say, now we're just not going to say anything about it. It's like the match didn't even happen. No stats, no numbers, no nothing, which I thought was one of the most bogus things I've seen in quite some time with Toronto and Columbus. We were there. Literally, it's almost like Gilbert Gottfried in Beverly Hills Cop with the ticket. It's like you got something over here, and then you look on your other hand, and then you kind of sit there, and it's like, oh, what's over here? Then you focus on the other, and then this is just like, what is this? I don't know what this is. Literally,
that's never happened.
That's exactly. It's like Toronto and Columbus. That's exactly what it was for me. The 3-1 loss to Sporting. We once again, the biggest element in all of this, Tyler, is that we don't have any context because none of us were at Chase Stadium now, since DRVP&K has surrendered their sponsorship ability. So none of us were there. We don't know what happened. All we know is literally 2 from the spot in the second half. We don't know what the lineups were. We don't know what the first 45 was. We don't know what the changes were. We don't know what the situation is or any context. It's like, honestly, Ropes, I will say this. Ropes, what do I think about the 3-1 loss to Sporting Kansas City in the preseason? You've got the line. Basically, that's it. It was a 3-1 loss to Sporting Kansas City in preseason. That's it, because we don't know what we don't know when it came to that particular match.
I can give you a little bit more context just from our quick chat with Pineda yesterday. He came over and he was talking about the new kit, the Resurgence kit. And we were just kind of chatting with him for a minute.
Yeah.
Yes, it's ridiculous. I understand, I think, to a degree, why teams do these closed matches and all, but it was kind of odd that you're getting updates, like random updates across Twitter from random accounts. And it's like, I thought this thing was completely closed.
Yeah.
But yeah, what do I think? First of all, I always have to go back and yell in my head that it's preseason, because there's things that we don't know. There's always going to be aspects of, like you said, the starting lineup and whatever else may have happened throughout the week that we don't know. But to give context to it, Pineda said that the week from the Tampa Bay match up to this SKC match, they increased the physicality and the workload and the training sessions and everything else, essentially 50% over what they were at this point last year. And if you follow the progression since Pineda's been here, he really leans into that sports science department. And in the beginning of 2023, he really, really pushed the guys even further than he did in 2022 and mentioned it in one of his first press conferences. We talked about it yesterday and pointed out that at this point last year, the second groups that he had in like his second 11s that were coming in, they were essentially playing 150 minutes at a time at this point last year, and now they're up to 225. So he said by the 60th minute or so, they were gassed. And that's what he wanted. He wanted them to be, to a degree, come opening day, where they're ready for a full 90 and beyond. And he's leaning into a sports science department to make sure that those guys are where they need to be, fitness wise, everything else. Caleb was one that didn't get a full 90 just because he's on his way back, but he did say that he should be set. He should be ready to go. But around the 60th, 70th minute, SKC brought in a bunch of young guys, fresh legs, totally opposite viewpoint from what Pineda is trying to do with his squad. So that's where you have that factor of, this is not an equal match. You can't take a ton out of it. If you've got, it doesn't matter. I mean, the talent matters, but the talent doesn't matter as much if you have somebody that's literally got fresh legs, that's just warmed up and they're ready to go against people that have literally been running, miles and miles and miles in training.
A young kid that wants to prove himself in an MLS environment.
Yeah. Which is also how injuries happen. Thankfully that didn't happen. But yeah, I just think it's worth having that context, because it's easy to say, 3-1 right before the season opens. And that sucks. But I don't get the vibe, and it didn't seem like Pineda had the vibe that they were concerned about it at all.
Maddie, for Tyler, go.
Ooh, well, I mean, you kind of mentioned it in that last question, but I mean, let's talk about the new kit, because I mean, it's gorgeous and I want one, but it's a little expensive out of my price range as a college student. So I got to kind of wait until it goes on sale for me. But what are your thoughts on it? And have you already bought one?
So, all right. So I haven't put it up yet. I was going to do my thank you post because I genuinely I'm super grateful. So Atlanta sent one. I don't know if anybody watches my Instagram, but they sent this lighter.
Yeah, what is the lighter, man?
Ooh.
This lighter is like a lightsaber. So it's an electronic lighter.
Okay.
All right. And then it's got this little button, which I didn't know existed, by the way. So I flipped the top on it and it turned on. But it's like this little like electricity arcing thing.
Oh wow.
So that was like I was tripping. I was tripping over this all last night. But
here he goes. Here it is.
My flex, I guess. No, I'm super grateful.
First time on the show and he flashes the Resurgence kit. I get it. There it is.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful.
There it is.
Everybody has their opinion about kits, right? Since this one was it was leaked, quote unquote leaked.
Yeah, when Clint Capella
and
Bogey Bogdanovich are walking down the aisle and the Hawks media and the Hawks social media team, they're taking pictures of the players walking in, and everybody's like, wait a second.
That was convenient.
It's like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
The Hawks releasing the Atlanta United new kit was not something I had on a bingo card.
Nope, not even a little bit. But I've liked it since I saw it because I think it's clean. I think it's not overdone. I mean, there's always going to be little picky aspects that I could be like, oh, I wish that was maybe a little different. Like the Phoenix, I wish there was a little more like, I guess, contrast with the blue. But I like it overall. I like the lettering on the back.
Okay, so Abby wants to see the back. So there you go. There's the back.
Yep.
Double blue. Okay.
So, yeah, I mean, I like what it stands for. I like what it means. I've lived in Atlanta my entire life. So
you're a kid of the South Side too, just like Jason.
Yeah. Same high school, actually, which is wild to me.
Wow.
Yep.
Two Eagles landing dudes in one soccer covering universe.
It's like a Marvel story, I think, in a way.
So is that going into a frame, or is that going actually to be a part of the wardrobe? See, that's the big question.
It'll be part of the wardrobe.
Okay.
It'll be part of the wardrobe. I've got, we do our show and I try to swap every week as much as I can. And now I've got a third option.
Okay. Now I see how this plays. I know how this works. When it comes to the new additions that were brought in here in the offseason, you mentioned Bart Sleesh. And, you've also got Stian Gregerson, who is now a part of the discussion at the back. And when you've got someone who is a tall drink of water who you can have on set pieces that can drive folks crazy and be that commanding presence at the back as one of your center backs, everybody was looking at addressing needs. You mentioned Josh between the sticks, having that experienced 1 or 1A, however you want to phrase it, 1-2, 1-1A, multiple competitions. You're going to need them both anyway. You bring in a Gregerson and you bring in a Bart Sleesh. Once again, Atlanta United, Carlos Bocanegra in the front office, they're finding those places with the distressed assets. And that's what we've always tried to maintain here is go to places where your analytics says, okay, this is the kind of guy that you need, but go to those places that are really in financial need where you can strike a deal. And the two guys you bring in Sleesh and Gregerson, you totaled $6 million, and you brought in two folks that can help you. So the analytics, the math, and the searching really seem to work out well in the offseason.
Yeah, and it's a stark contrast, too, to the previous seasons before, right? Like, we're not in the front office, and we can act like we're playing Football Manager all day, which is fun. But I think you're now looking at a vision by Garth Lagerwey, and we can have the Bocanegra discussion, but Bocanegra he's gone out and found talent. You can't deny that. Now, whether it was the right time to bring in that talent, that's absolutely up for discussion. But I think now you have a partnership that's really, really working, and they've hit a gold mine in League Two.
Yeah, I mean, you get Muyumba, you bring him in, and he has turned into an absolute crowd favorite out of the blocks. He's got wanderlust about him, and he'll be at one end, and then he'll be at the other end, offense, defense. He'll run from one end to the other without any
everywhere.
And then you bring in Jamal, you bring in Shonde Silva, And as long as you've got a Spidey mask nearby, then I think
Yeah.
you're okay when it comes to that. But yeah, it's you find these. It's not where you're running into all of these locations and trying to find. It's like, yeah, we'll pay like $11 billion for this dude. You're going to these locations, and League Deux seems to be. This is where Atlanta United, I think, has always done well. They have zigged when everybody else zagged. Everybody,
Yeah.
it's like, okay, let's go to South America. Everybody goes to South America. Okay, where do we go now? All right, let's go to Europe and find distressed assets and clubs that need it. And it just so happened that League Deux fit your analytics this time, and you're bringing in a lot of different folks from there.
My favorite, I think, quote from Stian, again, League Two guy, right? We've seen him in some capacity. He has the couple of matches in preseason, but they were trying not to overwork him, considering he was essentially in the middle of the season when he came over. But I think when people look at on the surface anyway, at face value, a lot of people will say, "Oh, well, that's coming from a second tier side in another country, whatever." Second tier sides in other countries, I don't know. I don't think I'm the first to say this, but they're not bad leagues. You have some genuinely awesome talent in plenty, even third tier, fourth tier in some places. But Stian Gregerson specifically, he said yesterday, and we laughed like out loud when he said this, because it was, I think people kind of come to the realization that he's played against guys like Erling Haaland and Mbappe, and it was brought up about his speed, because that's been one of his things that he's kind of blasted the most, his 1v1 defending and his speed. And I forget the exact question, but he goes, "Oh yeah, I'm not worried about my speed at all. I've gone up against Haaland and Mbappe." And we were like, okay, hopefully this, if anybody's on the fence about Stian, they hear something like that and they can say, okay, well, that's respectable at minimum.
So yeah, no fear with dealing with folks, and
Yeah.
that's in the European theater. When you have no fear in dealing with folks, that's always a good thing. It's like, yeah, Mbappe, I get him, and the fact, and you're staring at him too, because you got two Sequoias in the back in that situation anyway, where it's just like, no worries, I got this. It's all cool. And that also you mentioned Gregerson's speed, to have that, for lack of a better phrase, that lockdown free safety that you can have, like the Ed Reed type, like we had with Miles, where literally it's like you have no concern about the receiver going deep over the middle, because you know that free safety is going to be there, and you're not going to have any problem knocking the pass down, and they're going to have to start over with their offense. And so I think that this is something also to look forward to, where Sleeshy's going to help out, let Muyumba roam, which is something we saw last year. And Gregerson at the back, who's like, yeah, okay, let's bring it. Fine. I'm going to check my watch. All right, we're cool.
Yep.
And
especially with the way that Atlanta's playing this year. And that was something he kind of hit on yesterday as well, was, Brooks Lennon, the fullbacks, they're going to get high up the pitch. That we know that, and we've seen it a lot. But Brooks Lennon also has this tendency lately to kind of drift inside and be like another midfielder. And you're leaving Stian back there essentially by himself. And they've been, practicing moving over and making sure everybody is kind of covered. But he's not concerned about being left out on an island because of his speed, because of his 1v1 defending, and also his aerial ability. I mean, the dude's tall. He's a Sequoia. And it's nice to have that option back there who is confident. And even if there's a mistake, he has the athletic ability, just the raw talent to be able to make up for it.
Yeah, really looking forward to it. Maddie, anything else on your mind for Tyler here?
Well, I mean, just talking a bit about just that defense. I mean, it was a struggle last season. Obviously, we had probably the most goals scored, and then we had the most goals conceded as well.
Yeah.
I think especially with when you're having Lennon and Wiley kind of moving up more and being more up the field, and like having that back line not there, having Gregerson, having someone who is confident in his abilities, because like last year was not Miles Robinson's best year at all.
Yeah.
Kind of after that injury, we saw him kind of decline a little bit, and it was hard to really see, you have that attacking force, but you don't have anyone in the back line. So I'm excited to see how it all meshes together, because I think it's going to be more of a unified team and not just, oh, we're attacking base and there's no defense. Unlike another team I don't mention.
I feel like it's a more cohesive unit. I feel like you now have a team that is well designed instead of just a bunch of talent put together. I feel like there is a a true identity for the team. And I feel like you've got guys that the vibe just seems there, right? Like at the training ground, we watch them and I try to listen to the jokes and the things like that as much as we can, because that stuff's important. It's an intangible that you don't really realize and that fans don't get to see a lot of. But if you don't have relationships with those guys off the field, you're not gonna have the same chemistry on the pitch in any way. And that's just how it is. That's how sports are. That's how life is. And so seeing these guys out there, they're friends, they're hanging out, they're joking around, they're having fun, they're smiling, they're laughing. It's a stark contrast from what we've kind of seen the past couple of seasons. And you just have to hope that it translates come Saturday and from through the season.
Do we know who the rock, paper, scissors champ currently is?
Nick Firmino.
Okay. Wow.
Nick Firmino. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yep.
So does Nick get a belt? Do we know about this? Does he get a championship belt for rock, paper, scissors?
That is a great question. I don't know what the physical reward is, if there is one, but I do think there should be one. Mm-hmm. And yeah, like a WWE belt kind of style would be, and I would want him to wear it every time he walked out of the training ground.
Oh, absolutely. See, every single time he walks out, what you do, you have basically Nick, who is one of the most unassuming and quiet guys ever. Yeah. I mean, and to have this added to his personality where he can flip a switch and come walking out for practice, and he's got that rock, paper, scissors title belt, and then he has like a couple of attendants. Like he walks out and he goes through the concrete. The second he steps onto the grass, he stops. Two attendants come to the edges. They take the belt off of him. Nick goes like this, hands it to the attendants, and then he goes out for practice.
But then you got to add in the pyrotechnics on the sides.
True.
And whatever his song of choice is.
Absolutely.
Do the whole nine.
I was going to say, you have to have him walk out to a song. I was like, you have to.
Yeah. So when you are up at the Children's Healthcare of Atlanta training ground, if you could perhaps encourage Nick and or Atlanta United to have this consistent presentation for the rock, paper, scissors champ, whomever this is, regardless of if it's Nick Firmino or whomever, I just think that you ought to have the WWE belt. I think you ought to have the right to come out and present it every single time you go out to practice, or, at least once a week. One day, the loosest day of practice, you come out, you have your presentation, serpentina, the whole thing. You go out, you hold up the belt, and then you put the belt away, then you get to business. Before you go, when you look at the Eastern Conference, after you disappear here on your debut, we're going to talk about Messi and friends because that's the match tonight, and there's been some juggling of roster, and they are apparently compliant. I say apparently compliant because that's what we are told, and we have to take it at face value. When you look at the rest of the Eastern Conference heading into this season, what do you see?
I see a gauntlet. I see a very tough bunch of teams, and I don't know. It's so hard to predict because you have a couple of options. The Eastern Conference could go and run it like they did last year, and the West Coast could just entirely be almost non-existent until MLS Cup. Or you could have these Eastern Conference teams just absolutely destroy each other and have that one good team in the Western Conference that just is able to, have a run and do something. But I do think the stronger teams are in the Eastern Conference. I think Orlando, as much as it pains me to say this,
you're gonna prop up the purple team.
I know it. I have to preface this and say I despise them. I do. But I know good soccer when I see it, and at least what looks like a good roster. And I do think they've got the building blocks. They did last year. They've added some pieces. I think Orlando is going to be really, really tough. They were the best team actually in the second half of last year in terms of points. So Orlando, we know Columbus is going to be tough. That's consistent.
Yep.
I'm going to be honest. I'm not sure about Cincy. I mean, they obviously have Miles and they have a great team, but they've lost some pieces as well. So I think besides Atlanta, those are my three that I'm paying attention to. And you can never bet against Messi, right? and his entire group of friends from Barcelona.
Well, but they're also far north of 30, and they're not at 100%,
Yep.
and they're also in all these multiple competitions, and there is no defense. You want to talk about a team that is going to score goals and give up a lot of goals?
Yes, 100%.
Take
And
over.
Oh yeah, always. But I just don't think that they're going to have the run that people expect them to have.
Yeah,
I just don't.
Yeah, I just think that they're going to give up too many goals. They're going to score a boatload of goals. They're going to give up too many. Schedule compression, multiple competitions.
Yep.
Dudes north of 30. It doesn't add up well.
Already dealing with injuries.
And this is it's a top heavy bunch. Go ahead and hit the promo for us and let us know what's going on. Scarves and Spikes. And now that you have made your official weekly SDH debut, it is time to tell folks that this is going to happen every Wednesday after opening kickoff. Tyler's going to crash the party, and we're going to get his midweek views on the week that was and get ready for the weekend that will be. So hit the promo for me.
Yeah, y'all will get a lot more of me, for good or bad, I guess. So, yeah, no, obviously some things change with Dirty South over the week. A little wild. So essentially everything is over on Scarves and Spikes now, scarvesandspikes.com. Twitter, Scarves, the letter N, Spikes.
Yes.
And then me, it's just ATL Pilgrim. And of course, got all the guys, Sydney and Tommy over there, and everybody else doing the Scarves and Spikes thing and trying to give you content and written content and everything else. So that's where we're at.
Yep, nothing. And so we get another Eagles Landing High grad to drop in on a weekly basis. So Tyler, thanks for giving us your time here, especially during the season. And I hope that you realize what you've gotten yourself into by being a part of SDH on your Wednesdays. Thanks for coming and crashing the party.
I'm in it now. I appreciate it, y'all.